As I've mentioned before, the five forces is a powerful framework. It's very helpful, but it's also quite tricky. So here are some typical issues people have. And if you come across these issues, perhaps being forewarned is forearmed. So first of all, it requires a lot of judgment. It's pretty hard to do this in a mechanical way. So you have to have some understanding of the industry in order to be able to make these judgment calls. And this is why I use things like airlines and coffee shops as examples, because most people have an intuitive feel of these. Of course, you hopefully have an intuitive feel of your own industry, and therefore you're able to do this analysis. Then you have another kind of problem, which is because there's a lot of judgment involved, it's easy to be biased. And I've had groups who have sort of gone through the whole analysis. To me, it's clearly showed that an industry was either very attractive or very unattractive, and then come up with the opposite conclusion. So some good facilitation, some challenge is always helpful. Another little trap is attractiveness is a kind of a squishy concept in some ways. And a particular trap is people sometimes think of an industry as being attractive because you can get into it. So what they think is, I could get into this business, that makes it attractive. Now, in fact, the opposite is true. Groucho Marx said, I would never want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. And the same is true in industry. You want to be in businesses that are very hard to get into. Because if they're easy to get into, all sorts of competitors can flood in, and that will suck away the profitability in that industry or that segment. So the challenge in strategy, or one of them, is to find attractive businesses with high barriers to entry and find a way that perhaps you can get in, somehow sneak in under the radar, use some capability that you have, some partnership to get in, and then enjoy the profits of that segment. So don't make that mistake of thinking that a segment that has low barriers to entry is attractive. It's actually the opposite. Once you understand your industry, think about, is there any way you could change it? So if your customers have huge amounts of buying power, so for example, you're a supplier to Ford or GM or Volkswagen, what could you possibly do to try and reduce that power that they have over you? For example, any differentiation, uniqueness in your product could give you a little bit of an advantage over your competitors and your customer, to be honest, and allow you to get a little bit more margin out of them. So a lot of the value in the five forces is thinking, what can you do in response to that analysis that you've made and the realities of your industry to improve the industry? And when you look at what people do, they do a lot of this stuff. If there's too much rivalry, they will buy up other players, consolidate them into one or two competitors or three or four competitors to reduce the level of rivalry. If there's a lot of excess capacity, then big players will go through a program of sometimes acquiring capacity and closing it down, and certainly rationalizing their own capacity network. So, the industry structure is not a given. Another little tip I would say is use all the information at your disposal to check your results. Look at any financial data you've got about that industry segment, any industry studies, any information you have from competitors. If you've got a hunch based on the five forces analysis, it's going to be easier to take action if you've checked it and got some facts that back it up. And it's normally the combination of sort of hard facts and thoughtful judgments that you need in strategy. So those are just a few tips. If you've got any other comments, questions, let me know. I'd be delighted to hear from you.